Alright. I've customized wigs before on my channel, but I wanted to try a couple different techniques to see if the one that I'd used is the best one and what other results were yielded from other different ways of doing this. I found these technically four, but one of them wasn't pictured, wigs at Value Village during their Halloween season. I thought they gave me kind of like Ramona Flowers vibes. And because a fairly decent chunk of her personality is the fact that she changes her hair color, I thought it was a perfect time to try this little challenge for myself. I placed each wig on my head and then dry styled it in the way that hers is, and then cut a handful of the quote-unquote hair to the length it needed to be on both sides of my head. I carried this on with all four of them. And then took them off my head and placed them on my styrofoam mannequin head now. Feeling a little creepy and like Joe Goldberg with how many times my hands were around a new quote-unquote neck. And using just your run-of-the-mill scissors, like crafting scissors, I cut both the bangs to be shorter and a little bit more choppy and styled, and cut from one side to the other, being sure to stay consistent in length. Making a huge mess along the way. My tried and true for dyeing wigs is generally just using alcohol ink and isopropyl alcohol. I get my alcohol ink from Amazon and the isopropyl alcohol from the pharmacy, Rexall, Shoppers, whatever, it doesn't matter. Mix it together in a spray bottle, being sure that I get it to the opacity that I want it to be, which is trial and error because in my experience the color never actually changes in the bottle like to your naked eye, only when you spray it on the quote-unquote hair. If you find it's not opaque enough, add more ink. And because alcohol ink is fairly expensive, I do not like to waste. I want the hair to be as saturated as possible, but it does tend to drip because of the alcohol in there. So I wear gloves and fold it onto itself so that any drips that are doing their drippy thing simply go back onto the hair. I started with the red and then did the black underneath. Anytime I dye any type of wig this way, I always start with the lighter color first. That way if it gets onto any of the hair that you don't want it to, the darker color can usually cover it. But especially so because the red was the top color here, so it was easy enough. Also, always be sure that if the quote-unquote roots won't be showing, don't dye them. It's just a waste of product. Once the red and the black hair dried, I styled them into each other. In this case, just combing the bangs to blend them into themselves. Brushing the rest of the wig a bit and using my hands to kind of place the pieces better together. Kind of intertwine them a little bit, curl them in together. Now here's the before, and the after, and the side by side. Next up, as I only wanted to add the black to the bottom, and I'm not doing the top, I wanted to see if not adding the isopropyl alcohol would greatly affect the application process. I simply painted it on with my hands after using it out of like a little plastic container. I used a lot more of it and it was basically the same result. So I would still recommend mixing it with the isopropyl alcohol as it's not so expensive. The next one was a little bit tricky as I was wanting to start off with a base color and then realized it would absolutely not work at all. To begin, I used a blue alcohol ink mixed with isopropyl alcohol as I had done before, but it was not covering because, well, color theory. If you have yellow and you're going to put blue on top of it, it's going to go green. Instead, I tried acrylic paint with a textile medium, a half and half mixture, approximately. This is my tried and true for painting on fabric, basically making your own fabric paint, as you may know. However, I came to find that wigs are nowhere near the same result as painting onto fabric. I mixed a sky blue, which over top of the green, it basically just made it into a teal, but it did truly go on better than I actually expected it to application-wise. But then once she dried down, it was crispy. You could literally hear it. It was dried onto the mannequin head and the hair itself would not move. But I still thought maybe, despite it feeling like not even wig hair anymore, perhaps adding black acrylic paint mixed in with the textile medium, when it dried it would be usable. Maybe not like close up but far away. It was not. I had clipped up the teal top to keep it out of the way of the black bottom, but then it wanted to stay there. It honestly looked really greasy or like grossly wet. Once again, when I was taking off the mannequin head, it was stuck. Compared to the other wigs movement, this one had absolutely nothing going for it. And lastly, which was a last minute addition, that there was another option to actually color wigs, which is colored hairspray. I didn't want to waste an entire can just for it to not work, so I tested it first. Wow, that does smell like hairspray. We'll be back after these messages.
A few minutes later.
I left it on for about an hour. I know it would probably be dry after 10 minutes, but I went for an hour just to be absolutely sure. Then came back. Okay. It's got a little crunch to it, but it's alright. I finished off doing what I could on the top, and I'll say these colored hairsprays only color the hair that is lighter than it. Like, the green I sprayed over the orange did not hide the fact that it was orange. It was very prominently orange still, but it did hide the yellow. It still did have a crunch, but not like the acrylic mix, but as you may have guessed, it had the crunch like if you emptied a bottle of hairspray on it. So I pinned up the top half. It's a really good thing I plan on taking a shower after this. Comes off a lot. Then went in with a black brown for the underside. I know hers is like black, but the brown black was the cheapest one that I could get, and if this didn't work, which, spoiler alert, I didn't want to spend a lot of money just for it to not work. The thing about this hairspray is it will partially stain your actual hair, which I know from many years of using it when I was younger on my actual hair for Halloween. It will also get on everything. It stayed on my gloves, still is there. I was able to wash it off my hand, and it did flake off the wig. Not fully, like the color is still on there, but enough that if I was wearing this as a costume for a night, I would worry about my clothing all night, as it would most definitely rub off. It is a very temporary product, which is what it claims to be, don't get me wrong, but it's also proven not to be my go-to for dyeing a wig. All of this to say, I'm glad I tried these so you don't have to, but I will be sticking with my tried and true in the future. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.